Welcome back to the deep dive. I was just looking at my phone this morning, thinking about the AI I use every day. It's mostly, helping me rewrite a text so I don't sound passive aggressive or planning meals for the week so I'm not just eating cereal for dinner. It's convenient, yeah, but it's very life admin. The stakes are pretty low.
It's friction removal. It's
Yeah.
useful, for sure, but it's not exactly, altering the course of human history while you're drinking your morning coffee.
Exactly. But today we are pivoting hard. We're going from the mundane to, well, what I can only call the monumental. We're looking at a collaboration that is trying to fundamentally change how we treat disease, how we discover medicine, and honestly, how long we might all live.
It's a huge topic.
Yeah.
We're talking about the convergence of two absolute giants, Eli Lilly and Company, a 150-year-old pharma powerhouse, and NVIDIA, the company that basically built the engine for the whole AI revolution.
And what really stands out from the sources we're looking at is the timeline. This isn't science fiction. We're looking at press releases and announcements from late 2025 all the way up to, January 2026.
That's right. This is infrastructure being built right now. It's happening.
So the big idea, the mission here, is that they're trying to shift drug discovery from a game of, trial and error to something they're calling intentional design. And to do that, they're building something called an AI factory.
That term AI factory is really the key. It might sound a bit like a buzzword, something marketing came up with.
Right. It made me think of smokestacks and assembly lines, which just feels wrong for software and biology.
But you should think of it less like a car plant and more like a specialized engine for generating intelligence. An AI factory is this whole dedicated infrastructure for managing the entire messy life cycle of AI. It's not just a server in a closet. It's a massive integrated system. It takes in biological data, it trains these incredibly complex models, it fine-tunes them, and it spits out answers. And the engine, the heart of this factory, is the NVIDIA DGX SuperPOD.
Okay, I want to spend a minute on the specs here because the numbers in the briefing are they're hard to get your head around without some context.
Yeah.
We're talking about a system built with 1,016 Blackwell Ultra GPUs. Now, Blackwell is NVIDIA's absolute cutting-edge architecture, but to get the scale, the sources gave a comparison to the Cray supercomputer from 1992.
The Cray. Wow, that takes you back. In the early 90s, that was the gold standard, the absolute pinnacle. If you were doing nuclear physics simulations, weather modeling, you used a Cray.
Right. So get this. This is the math that just stopped me. A single Blackwell Ultra GPU, just one chip in this new factory, has the processing power of about 7 million of those 1992 Cray supercomputers.
It's almost impossible to even visualize that kind of leap. It's an exponential curve that just went vertical.
And this SuperPOD has over 1,000 of them.
It really puts Moore's law to shame. When you put all that power together, the system delivers over 9,000 petaflops of AI performance.
Petaflops, we hear that term, but let's just ground it. A flop is a floating point operation per second.
Correct. So in, let's say, human terms, 9,000 petaflops means this machine can do over 9 quintillion math problems every single second. That's a 9 with 18 zeros after it.
Yep.
But here's the crucial thing. The number itself isn't really the point. The point is what that number lets scientists do that they just couldn't do before.
It's not just about speed, it's about complexity, right? Because biology isn't neat.
Exactly. Biology is not code, it's physics.
Yeah.
It is messy. When you're trying to figure out how a drug molecule, which is this complex 3D shape, interacts with a protein in your body, another complex 3D shape, you're dealing with atomic level physics.
So it's not just, does this key fit in that lock? It's more like, how do these two clouds of atoms dance with each other?
Precisely. You have to calculate all the forces, the magnetic, the electrostatic, the vibrations, and calculating that dance takes a massive amount of computational power. With 9 quintillion calculations a second, you don't have to simplify the problem as much. You can simulate the physics much closer to how they actually happen in nature.
You can just compress timelines. What took years now takes months, or maybe even days. You can explore ideas that were just too expensive computationally to even think about before.
And that power, that capability, is what drives this philosophical shift that's mentioned in the documents. Thomas Fuchs, he's Lilly's chief AI officer, he said they're shifting from using AI as a tool to using it as a scientific collaborator.
That's such a subtle change in words, but a huge change in practice. A tool is a hammer, right? It just sits there until you pick it up. A collaborator brings ideas to the table. It suggests things.
And that's where we get to this concept of in-silico discovery.
In silico. I love that phrase. Sounds like a place in a sci-fi movie.
It just means in silicon.
Yeah.
So historically, drug discovery was in vitro. in glass, like test tubes, or in vivo. In the living, so animals or humans, both are really slow, really expensive. In silico means doing the experiment inside the silicon chips of the computer first.
So they're running these experiments virtually, simulating the biology before they even touch a chemical in the real world.
Yes, they're using the NVIDIA BioNino platform, which is like a training ground for these big biological AI models. But here's what I found fascinating about how they train it. They don't just feed it the successes,
They feed it the failures.
millions of them. They give the system data from millions and millions of molecules that didn't work.
That is so smart, but also so counterintuitive. I mean, in most industries, and just as humans, we bury our failures, right? We hide them away because they're embarrassing or seem useless.
But for an AI, knowing what leads to a dead end is just as valuable as knowing the path to a breakthrough. It helps the model learn the actual boundaries of chemistry and physics. By learning from all those failures, it can generate new molecules with a much higher chance of success because it already knows what not to do.
So it stops the human scientists from wasting 6 months going down a path the computer can already see as a dud. It's like a guardrail.
A very intelligent guardrail. Now, there's another piece of this called TuneLab, and this seems to tackle a huge problem in the pharma industry. Secrecy. Everybody guards their data.
Billions of dollars of R&D is locked up in that data. Of course they guard it.
Right, but TuneLab uses a concept called federated learning.
Federated learning. Okay, so this is the clever bit about sharing intelligence without actually sharing the secret data, right?
Exactly. Imagine you're a small biotech startup. You've got some amazing, really niche data on a rare disease, but you don't have a supercomputer. Lilly has the supercomputer and the giant model, but they want your data to make their models smarter. It's usually a stalemate.
Because you're not just going to upload your company's most valuable asset to their server.
Never. But with federated learning, you don't send them your data. They send a version of their model to you. It travels to your secure servers, learns from your data right there, locally, and then only the mathematical learnings, not the data itself, get sent back to the main model.
So the raw data never leaves your building.
Never. The startup gets to use this world-class AI, and Lilly's central model gets smarter for everybody. No one's trade secrets get exposed.
That builds an ecosystem, not a walled garden. That is a huge business shift, not just a technical one.
And this brings us right up to the latest announcement. The sources from January 12, 2026, they detail this next phase, the Co-Innovation AI Lab in the San Francisco Bay Area.
The lab of the future. And this is a serious commitment. We're talking up to $1 billion in joint investment over 5 years. What really jumped out at me here was this idea of integrating the wet lab and the dry lab. They want to break down the wall between them.
That is the holy grail of modern biology. The dry lab is the computer, the code, the AI. The wet lab is the physical world, pipettes, cells, liquids. And the problem has always been the delay between them.
The lag time.
The lag time. You model something, you email the results, a person sets it up a week later, they run the experiment, they email a spreadsheet back. It's just so slow.
And this new lab is built to close that loop, to make it continuous.
Right. And they're doing it with something called agentic AI.
Agentic. As in the AI has agency. It's not just sitting there waiting for you to type a prompt. It has a to-do list.
A to-do list and the ability to act on it. So picture these digital agents working 24/7. While the human scientists are at home, sleeping, the AI is analyzing the data from that day's experiment. But it's not just analyzing, it's planning the next experiment. It sends instructions to the robotic wet lab to run a new test at 3 a.m.
Wow.
The robot runs it, the data feeds back instantly to the AI updates its model, and then designs the next test for 4 a.m.
So the scientist comes in at 9 a.m. with their coffee, and the system basically says, hey, I ran 50 tests while you were asleep, and here are the 3 most promising results for you to look at.
That's it. It's a scientist-in-the-loop model. The human is still the architect setting the goals and the safety rules, but the AI is the one doing the round-the-clock building.
And the sources mentioned this lab is going to use NVIDIA's Vera Rubin architecture. So they're already planning for what comes after the Blackwell chips we just talked about.
The hardware cycle has to move that fast. The complexity of biology is basically infinite. You need every bit of computing power you can get your hands on.
Okay, so we found the molecule, the AI discovered it, the agentic lab refined it, but now you have a totally different problem. You have to actually make this stuff. Millions of doses.
And this is where the whole story moves from the digital world to the physical one. The sources call this physical AI.
Which sounds a little like sci-fi robots, but here it's about digital twins. Now, a digital twin, that sounds like a fancy 3D model, but it's more than that, isn't it?
Much more. Using NVIDIA Omniverse, Lilly is building a virtual replica of their actual manufacturing plants. But it's not just a visual model. It's a physics-based simulation. It understands the friction on the conveyor belts, the fluid dynamics in the pipes, the heat from the motors.
It's a flight simulator for a factory.
That is a perfect analogy.
Hmm.
And just like a pilot practices an engine failure in a simulator so they don't have to do it in a real plane, Lilly can use the digital twin to stress test their factory. They can ask, what happens if this critical pump fails? Or what happens if we speed up this production line by 20%?
They can break things virtually so they don't break things in the real world.
And in a pharmaceutical factory, breaking things has huge consequences. It means downtime. It means wasted medicine. And as Thomas Feach pointed out, machinery downtime means patients don't get their medicine on time. Reliability is a public health issue.
And then inside the real factory, they're using the NVIDIA Isaac platform for the robots themselves.
Yes, for training the robots that are moving materials or inspecting products. You can't just program a robot arm with simple code to handle fragile glass vials. It needs to see and feel and adjust. That's what Isaac lets them do. Quality inspection with, superhuman consistency.
So you've got the brain, which is the SuperPOD, the hands, the robotics, and the whole environment, the digital twin. It's a complete system. Well, let's bring this all back to the human impact. If you're listening to this and you're not a computational biologist, why does this matter? Is this just about a big company getting more efficient?
I mean, the efficiency helps their business, sure, but the most direct impact for a patient is the dream of personalized medicine finally becoming real. We've heard that promise for decades, right? Medicine tailored to your DNA. This is the kind of infrastructure that can actually deliver it.
How does the supercomputer help with my specific prescription?
Because with this much power, you can move away from the average patient model.
Right.
Right now, drugs are tested on a population. If it works for most people, it gets approved. But your genes are unique. This system can analyze massive genomic data sets to predict how you, specifically, will respond to a treatment.
So no more try this for 6 weeks and let's see what happens.
That is the goal, the right treatment the first time. They're also using it for imaging. Deep learning can spot patterns in an MRI scan that a human radiologist might miss, or just analyze the data way faster. It could cut diagnosis time from weeks down to days.
I also notice a big emphasis on sustainability in the reports. Usually when we talk about AI factories, we think about the massive energy consumption. These things are power hungry.
It's a huge problem for the whole tech industry. But Lilly seems to be engineering around it from the start. They stated this supercomputer will run on 100% renewable electricity. And they're using their existing chilled water infrastructure for liquid cooling.
Which makes perfect sense for a chemical company. They already have all that plumbing and cooling in place for their other processes.
Exactly. AI chips get incredibly hot. Cooling them is a massive operational cost. By integrating liquid cooling and renewables, they're trying to align this with their goal of being carbon neutral by 2030.
And finally, the economic side of it. This isn't just software in the cloud. This is real-world investment.
It's a massive economic engine. Lilly has a $50 billion commitment to U.S. manufacturing and R&D. And specifically, this place they're building in Indiana, the Lilly Medicine Foundry.
$50 billion is a staggering number.
And it translates to jobs. We're talking 13,000 manufacturing and construction jobs, plus 500 new high-tech roles for the people who actually run these systems engineers, scientists, lab techs.
It sort of pushes back on that narrative that AI just destroys jobs. It seems like it's shifting the kind of jobs we need. We need people who can speak both biology and data.
Absolutely. That is the new career path.
Yeah.
You need a workforce that can bridge that gap.
So just to recap this whole journey, we started in a server room with over 1,000 GPUs doing quintillions of calculations, the AI factory. We moved to digital agents, discovering new molecules while we sleep. We saw robots inspecting medicine in a factory that was first perfected in a virtual world. And it all ends with a personalized treatment getting to a patient faster and more reliably than ever before.
It's a complete reimagining of the entire pipeline, from the atom all the way to the pharmacy shelf.
There was a great quote from Diogo Rao, Lilly's Chief Information and Digital Officer, that I think just grounds this whole thing perfectly. He said, "At the end of the day, it's all about human learning, not machine learning."
That is the key takeaway, isn't it? The machines aren't doing science instead of us. They're stimulating new ideas in us. They're finding patterns in the data that are just too vast for the human brain to see on its own. It's making the human scientists smarter.
It comes right back to that collaborator idea. The machine suggests a path, and the human decides whether to walk it.
It does.
So before we sign off, I have a question for you and for everyone listening. We've talked about AI as a tool and now as a collaborator. But if these AI agents can reason and plan and experiment on their own 2047, if they are the ones generating the hypotheses that lead to the cure for Alzheimer's or cancer,
Hmm. I think I see where you're going with this.
are we moving toward a future where the Nobel Prize for Medicine might one day be shared by a human scientist and a supercomputer?
That is a profound question. If the core insight comes from the silicon, who gets the credit? The person who built the machine, the person who ran the query, or the machine itself? We're not there yet, but we are definitely getting closer.
Something to think about next time you ask your AI for a dinner recipe. It's a small window into a very, very big future.
Indeed it is.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Stay curious.